I think the Rockets were bummed with this result. I don't think the Rockets wanted Minnesota in round one. I think they would have preferred San Antonio. I think they would have preferred Denver win this game. So I don't think Houston's happy with their opponent, but they still should be able to beat them in, I would say, a maximum of 6 games.
If Wiggins was to step up and be that third superstar, they could give up they could give him a good fight here. Wiggins, to me, is the truth. We know Jimmy Butler, man, coming back at the extended time off, only played 3 games. They had to win all 3 of these games. He is a star among stars. Karl Anthony Towns, we kind of know what he's going to do. He is a star. Who's that third guy? And you need a third guy against the Rockets.
And by the way, real quick, on Wiggins, he hit 2 critical free throws last night, as you mentioned.
Yes. And is not a great free throw shooter.
The Rockets won't have Luc Richard-Mbah-a-Moute in this first-round series, at least.
One of the feel-good stories of the night, guys, Markelle Fultz, the #1 pick of the 2017 draft. Remember, he missed 68 games with a shoulder injury. Well, last night, he became the youngest player in NBA history at 19 years old to record a triple-double. The Sixers will face the Heat in the first round. Nick, with a healthy Fultz, and if you get Joel Embiid back, how far can this Sixers team go in the playoffs?
The conference finals. Conference finals, and be a bummer for the Cavs to have to face, unlike in the conference finals the last few years where the Cavs have swept 1-6, 1-5. That's how they've gotten to the NBA finals through the conference finals the last 3 years. Like, Sixers be a real challenge now. And I mentioned all those teams in the conference finals. The Sixers will have home court advantage against the Cavs, where they did play in the conference finals. Now, I don't think they can win the East. I don't think they have quite enough experience to win the East. But one thing I guess CC and I might disagree on is, if by the time you get to the conference finals, you have some playoff experience. You'll have 2 rounds under your belt. Like, that's, to me, just as valuable as if you go there the year before and get knocked out in the first round. Like, it won't be new to you at that point in time, which is why one of the reasons, if they are going to get bumped off, maybe Miami, round 1, no Joel Embiid early on, but I think Philly's playing too well for that to happen.
How far can Philly go? They can go all the way to the NBA Finals. I mean, they are as good as anyone. Now, do they have an answer for LeBron? They're as good as the Cavs, but do they have an answer for LeBron? And if they are able to have an answer for LeBron, and that answer doesn't have to be defensively. It could be Joel Embiid going off. Joel Embiid going for 28, 14, and 5. Like, so this is the first time that I thought that there was a true match for LeBron, and Fultz in this story is a tremendous story. Youngest to get a triple-double after his season basically being over with. Happy for him.
Absolutely.
The Knicks fired their head coach last night. That's what happens when you go 60 and 104 in the last 2 seasons. That is the 6th worst record in the NBA over that span. So the Jeff Hornacek era is over in New York. CC, what do you make of the move by the Knicks?
Well, I watched about a dozen of those games in the Garden this year, so I'm not surprised by this move. As you realize, too, that at the hierarchy of the New York Knicks right now, Scott Perry, the new general manager before the season, he didn't hire Hornacek, so he's not obligated to be able to stick with him. He should be able to hire his coach, and he should be judged on what his coach does in New York. They're looking to try to bring in another player. They would love to be able to get Kawhi. Do they have the assets to be able to get him? That is questionable, but they are looking to make a mark. Mark Jackson coming back to New York City. That would be refreshing. There's a couple other names that people will bring out, but yes, this is what Scott Perry and the Knicks had to do moving forward.
And Mark Jackson, I believe, would leave the broadcast booth. He's got a great job, but he would leave the broadcast booth for that job in particular. I think Mark Jackson wants to be a head coach again. I don't think he's been quiet about that or shy about that. That would be, given his, his playing career, given his history, the Knicks would make a lot of sense.
You can always go back in the TV booth.
Oh, absolutely right. No, that's a great point. And David Fizdale's name is going to be around all these openings. Keep an eye if you hear rumors about Doc Rivers. I know he's with the Clippers. Just keep an eye on him.
Moving on, free agent safety Eric Reid, Colin Kaepernick's former teammate who also kneeled during the national anthem in protest, reportedly visited the Bengals on Monday. According to Pro Football Talk, Bengals owner Mike Brown's interview of Reid almost exclusively dealt with the topic of kneeling and the owner's plan to prohibit players from doing so. When asked for his take, Reid, who has said he no longer plans to kneel, wasn't willing to commit to Brown's edict. Chris, what do you make of all of this?
This is kind of strange because Eric Reed beforehand said that he wasn't going to kneel. If you thought that NFL owners were concerned about you kneeling, well, he knew they were concerned. That's why he made the announcement. He said he wants to play football. You can't be shocked at all that they don't ask you about your physical health. They're going to ask you about the kneeling. Like, they shouldn't have been surprised by that question. The surprise would have been that his answer had changed. If I'm an NFL owner and the guy has taken the kneel, I'm not doing my job if I don't ask him about that. And now his response, that would be surprising to me. If he was trying to play in the NFL, he shouldn't be surprised that every owner would ask him about it. Now, why he would change his mind or why he couldn't answer that the way he had answered it in the last several months, as if he wasn't going to be taking a knee, if he didn't think that would affect his employment in the league, that's fairly shocking to me that he might have been surprised or taken back by the question.
I think I can make some sense of it. I think there are certain things that people are willing to do on their own volition that do not want to be forced to do if they feel like it is their right to do it. Like, so Eric Reed maybe have been saying, I'm not planning on doing this, but I'm allowed to. And if you are asking me, will I commit to because you're telling me I can't or you're telling me you don't want me to? What, Jenna?
It's a lot of semantics when you put it that way. You don't think so?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so if someone says to you, if someone says to you, I'm just curious, you feel the same way. If after work today you're planning on getting a cup of coffee and your boss calls you up and says, Jenna, you have to go get a cup of coffee after work. I feel differently about that. I feel differently about being something, whether I'm planning to do it or not, or someone who I feel does not have a right to tell me I must do something or mustn't do something. Because, as I've discussed before, if the league wants to prohibit this, they have a collectively bargained agreement. You can go back to the table and talk to the players. If the commissioner, who has, to his credit, has not tried to do this, he could issue an edict and see if the players want to fight on it. But the Eric Reed thing is so interesting because the only justification for Colin Kaepernick not being on a roster has been, well, there's the media circus. There would never have been a media circus surrounding Eric Reed. People didn't know who Eric Reed was. People didn't care about Eric Reed. USA Today wasn't going to show up. The Today Show wasn't going to show up. There wasn't going to be some big, oh my God, you signed Eric Reed as the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now you've got 80 news organizations showing up. This is about a disagreement, if you want to call it, with what he is kneeling for or standing for. Like, there's no other way to look at it because the cap, what I think are erroneous cap arguments, but those cap arguments don't apply to him. He's not a big enough celebrity, a big enough star, big enough distraction who's put. And, by the way, he's a really good player who's cheap. Like, none of that makes sense.
Jenna, what's your opinion on it?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. If he came out already and said publicly, I'm not going to kneel anymore, I know that...
And there's probably a reason why he came out early and said that.
Well, he knows that if he wants to play football again, he's going to have to say that. So he has said, I'm not going to stop believing in what I believe in. I still want very much to fight for those rights and all of it. I will do it on a different time, maybe not during, the opening portion of a football game. You can't take that away from me. I understand that. I also understand I want to play football. And in order for me to play football...
Why can't they take that away from him? I'm just curious. Would you, because you are okay with the owner saying you can't do this. What if the owner said, I also, by the way, don't want you protesting at any point. I don't want anyone that represents my organization.
That hasn't happened.
Oh, I understand, but one of the problems with opening the door to this, to use an analogy someone brought up on Twitter that I don't think is an unfair one. There's one thing. What if it's a woman applying for a job? Can you commit you're not getting pregnant? Can you? I'm just curious. I know you said you're not planning on it. Can you commit you're not getting pregnant? No, this is not what.
Okay, let's not move the goal line now. Eric Reed said he wasn't going to take a knee. There was a reason why he said he wasn't going to take a knee. Now, he wasn't going to take a knee if he was playing in San Francisco, or he wasn't going to take a knee anywhere in the NFL. Given what the NFL owners went through last year, each owner needs to collectively look at his team and his fan base and decide what he's going to do. I wouldn't be shocked that other owners, like Mike Brown and others, would say, I would prefer you guys didn't take a knee. I would like to get some type of word because I don't want to go to week number 1 and it be totally unpredictable. Mike Brown has the right to be able to find out where guys stand if they're going to be employed by the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe Mike Wright was within his right to be able to do that. Now, why Eric Reed decided that it was more important for him to keep his right to take a knee compared to being gainfully employed? Like, I don't understand. You can't give away the platform of the National Football League just for your right to take a knee. To me, what?
Oh, I can't speak for how you would do it. I think that's a dangerous place to go to. To say in order to be a member of the National Football League, you then have to sacrifice some of your theoretically inalienable American rights.
NBA do it. They agreed to it.
They agreed to it.
Okay.
They agreed. They came to the table, and that is a part of their agreement between the players and the owners. That is not where it is right now. I've said time and again, if the owners want to,
so you would give up. You would give up your career. You would stay on the corner of, I'm going to take a knee. You would give up your NFL career.
I don't know how I would act as an NFL player. I can talk about this. And what.
Talk about the NFL, because there's more people doing this.
Absolutely. There are more people.
There's more people qualified to be able to do this job.
No doubt about it.
Let's talk about being one of the rarest of rare, one of the 1,600 players. You're the best in the world.
If you are willing to give up your career to stand up for what you believe to be a just cause you believe in, that to me should be commended, not criticized. That to me is courageous.
It's not a matter of being commended. It's a matter of what you decide to do with your career.
He saw what happened when Colin Kaepernick decided to do that.
How is listen, I'm just baffled that the reaction to Colin Kaepernick unfairly being blackballed from anyone would be, well, okay, now you've seen a guy's been blackballed, make sure you don't get blackballed.
You should consider that. You should consider that. If you want to play in the National Football League, you should consider that. You'd be naive to think that, oh, this couldn't happen to me. And if it happened to a starting quarterback, a quarterback who took his team to the Super Bowl, like, you think it couldn't happen to him? Eric Reid thought it was happening to him. Yes, it is happening. This is what owners were going to do. This was the only recourse because they couldn't change the collective bargaining agreement. Only way they could do it is communicate to the players, this is what I prefer.
Why do you think Eric Reid came out a few months ago and said, okay, I changed my mind, I'm not going to kneel?
Because he was making the decision on his own. Listen, maybe this
No, he wasn't.
What?
It was because the pressure, and he saw Cap didn't have a job.
Sure, but he wasn't forced to do it, is my point. Because clearly...
Yeah, he was forced to do it because he saw the results of what was happening.
Okay. Well, I mean, now we can, I guess...
That's why I said it's semantics, because it's the difference between him deciding to do it because he felt pressure from the NFL and the NFL saying...
Yeah, he didn't stop taking a knee because he didn't believe in the cause.
Of course, and he still wants to take a knee, and he wants to still believe in the cause and act and practice it, but outside of the realm of the NFL and the football game.
What is not, again, like the reality is there is no protest when it comes to police treatment of black people that people are going to accept. There is no protest people like.
That's not what we're talking about, though, Nick.
Well, hold on, see, let me try to finish the point, please. So the idea, though, you're right that I don't know how I would act if I were a pro football player. I don't know if I would have the courage to put my career on the line for a cause that I believe in. And I'm not, and for a guy that is saying, listen, it's too important for me and my family, the financial gains, all the work I've done, I am going to set aside. I wouldn't criticize the guy for that. But what I can do with this type of platform, within the media, on television, is to not allow the conversation to be shifted from how guys are reacting to the injustice rather than the injustice. The idea that we are just saying, okay, it's a given, the owners are blackballing a player. The owners have made it clear we're not going to let guys kneel, even though we don't have the right in the collective bargaining agreement to prohibit it at the moment, and we are just going to take that as a given. I find that to be irresponsible and dangerous. Once you open the door to that, the idea that it's moving the goalpost to say, guys, you can't publicly support political candidates. Guys, you can't participate in protests as long as you are under contract with us, even if it's off the clock. They are all members of the same family. They are all related to each other.
Well, now what's next for Eric Reid is he's at an impasse, and he has to see what he's going to do, and if other teams now, after hearing that, are going to bring him in. We're going to take a break. We have more First Things First right after this.
Yeah, now you don't have no platform.
Well, but that's not his fault. That's not...
It's a decision.